Welcome back to part 2 of our spooky skeleton, spooky cowboy photo manipulation that we're working on. In the first video, we created the horse and the skeleton cowboy, added the mummy bandages onto the horse. And in this video, we're going to be adding the background and a lot of the coloring to set the mood for the overall image. So let's go ahead and continue with that. So this is where we left off with part 1. And I am at this point going to, so I'm going to click here, control, and then hit Control G to group all of that together, and we'll call this Cowboy. And now we're going to start adding our background. And this is going to be our primary background image here of a cool cemetery. I actually took this picture in Ireland. And we want to drop that now down below. And let's make sure that this is a clipping mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Alt and go in between the layers and hit down. And that's going to make it so this only affects the cowboy and not the background image below. And then I'm going to go ahead and re-hide him for the time being. So what I want to do is I want to add a different background and sky image here. I want to add something with some more trees to it. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rasterize this layer. And I'm going to go up to Select, Sky. And I want to get rid, and this does a really good job most of the time with selecting. So I'm going to go to the quick selection tool and I want to select out. Don't want that house, and I don't want this tree, and I don't want this tree. Okay, so I just run that over. Okay, and then I can come up here and hit select and mask and come down here and say I want a mask. And the problem is though, it's inverted of what I really want it to be. So I'm just going to click on my mask and hit Control I to invert it to show the part that we want to show here. Okay, and now I'm going to actually add a solid color layer. And this is the color that I actually want it to be, 544F00. And I actually want that below this layer. And I'm going to click on that layer. And now we're going to bring in our sky layer. And I just wanted more trees and stuff. I think it adds to the overall effect. Check that. Now the reason I added this is I'm going to do the blending option on that sky layer to multiply. And what that allows it to do is it allows this color to bleed up through the sky layer and color it with this kind of eerie greenish yellow cast that we're working with. Okay, and then I'm going to come here, click on this layer again. I'm going to hit 0, or hit plus rather, and we're going to add a moon and Just getting the color here. Now I'm going to go to my brush and brush. And this is, I found some free brushes, so you should be able to find this. And then I need to change the color. And I want this big and dramatic, so we're going to add that like that there, so it's really filling up the background. Okay, so we're moving along here. Then what I want to add is I want to add a clipping mask here to add some color to the front image. So I'm going to right click on there and go to create clipping mask, and I want it to be the same color as this bottom one here. So I'm going to go to my paint, but I'm going to select this, change that color, go to my paint bucket tool and paint that and do the blending mode to overlay. And so that now ties that background and foreground in together and starts to add more of that feel that we're wanting to achieve with this particular photo manipulation. Okay, now to continue with the adding some mood and drama, I'm going to bring on make sure I'm in the right spot here, yeah. Bring on this fog layer. Then I'm going to drop the opacity of this down to right around, I think, 70%. Then I'm going to add a mask and hit B to bring back my brush. Create a soft brush here, get a soft brush. And then I want to mask that out around that moon and just kind of do something kind of like that. Let's reduce the opacity of the brush and then kind of just mask a little bit of this away. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so now it's time to add back in our cowboy. And I want to use the same clipping, well, not the same clipping mask, but a similar clipping mask of the one that we've used here for coloring the cowboy. So I'm going to create a copy of that, and I'm going to drag that up to here to now get him starting to be colored in that same coloring as the rest of it. And then I'm going to add a hue and saturation layer and desaturate him down to around 40, something like that. Okay. Then what I want to do is I want to add a kind of some rim light, and so I'm going to go up here to blending options and hit inner shadow. And this is actually set up the color I want it to be. But on the inner shadow here, you can select the color you want it to be, the opacity, the angle the light's coming from, the distance, and the size. And again, the size really just adds feathering to it. And hit OK. And part of the problem you can get with that effect is you may not want it everywhere that it puts it. So what you can do is you can right click here and you can go to create layer, and that will actually create that on its own layer, which allows you to add a mask. And then you can kind of take away where you don't want that to be so pronounced. Looks like I need to adjust that fog layer a little bit. Okay, check that. And I think I'm going to come back up to this hue and saturation and saturate him just a bit more. Oh, sure, that's a clipping mask. Okay, that's looking good. Now what I want to add is just some foreground elements to kind of, create that where we have a background, midground, and foreground, and just add a tombstone. Now let me make sure I'm clear at the top here. Going to add a tombstone. Kind of tipping on its side here. And I'm going to bring on a raven to be perched on that. And then I'm going to go to blending options and do a drop shadow. Just to add the shadow where he's on that tombstone right there. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing where I want a similar clipping mask to this. I'm going to copy that one and I'm going to drag it. I'm going to combine these into a group and then make that a clipping mask to get that in the same color range that we want it to. Now what I want to do is, I'm going to call this Raven, is I want to blur that. And so one thing you can do with a folder like this is you can turn it into a smart filter, and then that allows you to add filtering that will affect all the layers in that folder, and you can get back to the folder by clicking on that And what I want to do with this, I want to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and blur that a fair amount. Something like that. Okay. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to add a, sorry, I'm hitting Control Z to revert that back, change. I want to go to curves, and I'm just going to darken up this whole image to give it more of that nighttime effect that we're going for. So we're getting pretty close to being done here. I'm going to go back down to the Cowboy and add a color balance to him. And that's not really doing what I want it to do, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Let's try it at this level. There we go. That helps him fit in a little bit better there. Okay. So basically at this point, we are 90% done. And this is where I like to just experiment, use different filters, and go into maybe Camera Raw and try some of the filters in Camera Raw just to create the overall look that I'm really looking for. And I'll show you two different ways that I potentially would finish this off. And one of the really powerful features that really can add a lot of drama to your image is to use this color lookups and use these LUTs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a crisp warm and see how that really just adds a really cool effect. And then I'm going to add another color lookup, and I'm going to do this one, edgy amber. I'm going to drop that down to 0, and then just start bringing that up to get it to the point where I like that. So that would be one way I could see finishing this image off. And another way, if you have knit collection, is to use some of the filtering that's in the knit collection. So I'm going to actually create a stamp. So a stamp is a copy of all of your layers merged into a single layer, and you do that by hitting Control, Alt, Shift, and E, and that creates this stamp of all your layers. And then I'm going to go up to Filter, Knit Collection, Color Effects Pro, and I'm going to find this Super Punch, and I'm in the recipes section here. And for this particular image, I really liked the effect that added, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then I'm going to filter, knit collection, Color Effects Pro. And I'm going to add one more set of filters here. Warm sunset. And again, I just like the look of that as well. So that's two different ways of kind of giving this that final coloring and look and feel that we may be after in our photo manipulations. So I'm going to do just one more thing. I'm going to go to Filter. I'm going to go to Camera Raw Filter. And I'm going to add a vignette. And that's our photo manipulation of our skeleton cowboy completed. I hope you enjoyed it and may have learned something that you can use in your photo manipulations. Thanks for watching.